we emphasize a combination of props. And I think about sometimes when I work with the restorative is that it's the prop combination that's really kind of essential for your body to feel like it can restore into the shape of the props. But your body is not going to be like this stiff, right? So, well, it might be. But when you lay on your back, I want you to sit right on that block, that little Lego. And then as you lower down your mid beam, kind of think on when I release back, it's this kind of fanning of the ribs. Okay, so be generous with your blankets. Let's say you've done this and I've taught where you can take one blanket away. Try for today that you're generous and you have support. If you got your hair in a bundle or something, you got an extra something behind your head, maybe kind of work so that at least the very base of your neck has this nice elongation, right? So the tunnel from the brain stem to the trapezius, the upper back, is kind of like it's an open band. It's nice to open that band up. And then you'll add a sandbag and you'll perch it up to your rib intersection. And then once that sand is layered along your upper bones, feel if you can get the sand kind of sides of the sack. So it feels like it's kind of pushing out and down. I like to kind of comb the sandbag a little bit and use it to its full potential, instead of just kind of plopping it on and getting through your poses, maximize. So when you lower down your legs, you lengthen them down. And then we open the rib cage and maybe there's a belt somewhere back there. So feel the belt with your hands that you can grasp on and open out through the pectorals, the pec muscles. And then maybe your feet separate. I would randomly move the legs until you sense your breathing can work with the sand. So for me, I feel like I can get my sand a little bit higher on my ribs. It seemed fine when I was starting out, but now I need it a little bit higher up, so it's somewhat challenging for my breathing muscles. And I'm using the hold of the belt so it brings some balance of both arms as far as the circulation, right? So you get a feel when you hold the belt and you kind of pull. Yeah, there's balance in each arm. They're both tuning up. But try to maintain that pull, feeling your elbows on the floor. So the belt might be pretty wide. So you're not trying your ultimate struggling with the belt, but you're using it as a balancer. And then we come into breathing focus. So resting your eyes and attend to the awareness of the inhale and possibly awareness of letting go on the exhale. And just for now, receiving the inhalation, filling the lungs, exhaling, letting go. Let the pace have a regularity that might be even. It might be a longer exhale. Just notice if that's reasonable expectation right now. Longer exhales are calming. So if it doesn't seem like you can let your exhale be 1 or 2 counts longer, then it might come along in a half hour or so. So the body calms with time. Now release the grip, open out the arms so that they feel as if they're they're pointing straight out from the upper chest. And you might even find the back of your hands from your fingers up to the nails. That might be a place that touches, and the rest of the arm is a little bit up from the ground. But feel if you can let your elbows soften. Good, and let the shoulders open. It's kind of a funny thought because a shoulder opening would be a front shoulder here. The back shoulder does not open here. So it's one part. Now let's come into Badakanasana. So, and you take the knees to kind of perk up. So they are sliding on the feet, the knees slide back in. And if you kind of think about it, is that the foot that's going, I think we would all probably agree that's what pulls the knee up. But I think it's a little bit of the core muscles that you reintegrate into your awareness here. So let's just try this one on. Actually, this is before Badakanasana. I'm kind of adding this in for the stomach. So alternate lifting a leg at a time. Bring the knee to bend. It doesn't have to bend in towards your chest, but it flows up. If you feel that the knee drawing towards your chest is reasonable, then go with that, but feel the movement pattern of a leg lifting, a knee drawing towards you. And give it a couple more times, once to each side. And feeling solid in the core and kind of spontaneous movement in the back when you lift up a leg. And then slide the feet together, the soles of the feet touching and the knees motioning open and arching naturally, of course, through that spine traction. So I like this pattern sometimes with all this height under, because you can feel these arches through the spinal thoracic, right, the mid, and then you can feel the arch in the legs, right, in the outer band, the inner band. It really does kind of get you into circulation. So feeling that circulation through the thighs, through the spine, into the breathing cycle. So experience the inhale for 4 to 5 counts in, and the exhale for 5 to 6. Now with these core organs, or these corgans, we're going to work into inversion so we can work on our cardiovascular system, our lymphatic, which is versed is more immune system work. So we're going to kind of cruise right into that. And this brings the body right here in a literal vulnerable position, right? Because it's expansive. You know, everything's kind of working on its circulation dynamic. But we'll add on the legs draining out now. So take the sand aside and bring the knees pointing up. And I want you to slide the block away that's underneath you. And the dynamic might be to move your blanket top and actually be a little aware of your belt. You don't want to lose that underneath, buried under your blanket. So slide that off to the side. One blanket goes back, one is underneath your head. And then now you kind of feel the necessity to get this bolster a little lower. So I feel my chin tuck to my chest, so I have more of this bandha with throat circulation. Lift up my hips and then scoot. So I'm in a bridge pose. Scoot the bolster under the back of my pelvis. So it's probably several inches you move it down under your pelvis. But once you lower down on top to settle your bones and your muscles of your hips, I want you to get a feel of that weight, that counterweight, and then process maybe the knees swishing a little side to side, maybe adjusting things as such until you can lift up your feet, and then get a ball or block. But we all have these grippy balls, so that we all discuss it that way. So anyone watching this afterwards can use a block, okay, if you don't have a ball. But arms open, and let the knees shift from side to side with the ball as a spacer between. So feel when the leg positioning holds the ball. And when you move, your back is warming, right? So your knees are moving side to side, or your legs and your hips, for the benefit of warming up the hips and the back. So be generous with the amount of movement you project from one side to the next. You might start to get a little bit faster with it, but feel where the sense of reaches through your rib cage. And that rib cage is in the back of the body as much as it's in the front. At least I think that's how ribs work. It's pretty simplified here, how we're processing this warm up in our back. Okay, now when you come back to a center place, which could be almost in the middle, but not quite. Okay, I want you to add that sand. So feel the ball placement. Feel that you can squeeze into the ball with your legs. You can really squeeze in. And the ball's responsive surface. So when you squeeze in, there's always further you could go. There's more to that. But I want you to get that energy kind of pulsing through the leg. And then as you take away the ball and you add your sand, you're going to put that sand bag across the soles of the feet. Okay, let me make sure this is all just right. Okay, so as I get the sand on the feet, the bottoms, and I push the legs so they move a little forward. They certainly have elevation opportunity here. And then when the feet find their stretch, calves are stretching. Create momentum so that the breath volume really picks up in the belly. Right? So I want to emphasize that when I'm here, my abdomen lifts, but it's going against gravity, right? So you're inverting the body. So during the day, it's prolapse, it drops. The organs drop. Everything kind of droops, right? So this is the opposite of that opportunity. Even if you don't see a visceral big change, it is a toning of the organs as well. So there's some things you won't be able to see with your eye because it's inside. But when you're letting your feet continue to remind them to flex, take the hands, interlace at the roots of the fingers, push the palms up. And then as you stretch your arms back, reach through the arms, but have them in this kind of specific interlock with the hands, the fingers, and that reach. So it's limiting your span back. And the feet might flow a little forward with the sand. They may flow a little bit back. How about sense both of those directions and then respect where your body finds balance. You know, and the honest truth is that the hand lock right now is not my favorite way to be with this pose, but I know that it's giving some good circulation for my lymph because my armpit chest has so much of that as well. So I know as a health, focus, science-wise, I'm going to stay with this positioning. It's only a little bit of time when all things considered. But when your feet are flexing, can you let the toes motion towards your knees? Not assuming they're going to get anywhere close, even in their flexion. But feel that pattern. And if your knees start to get a little bit closer, noticing and make sure that they're not touching. Some people put something small between the knees, but if you don't have a little towel or something, that actually might be a good addition to add for some poses, a little hand towel. At home, you can find all these things. Okay, so with the fanning of the ribs, expanding and relaxing, belly returns back to the spine. Now let's keep the leg balance, and we'll add a belt. So what I want you to do is remove the sand, put it on the left top thigh, stretch the right knee to bending in so that the pattern of bending is simple with the right leg. Get a belt and put it under your right foot and stretch the leg up. Keep it simple so my hamstring on this right leg has some connectivity here. And feel if you can pull towards your head. You're pulling the leg. It's nice to do this post legs up so that you feel that they're different. There's a different connection. Maybe you don't, but you feel there's a little different connection in the hamstring on both of them. They have balance. So if your left foot is kind of flopping out, let it be. You could move the left foot a little bit wider on the floor, right? Kind of stride the leg out so you don't have as much of an external floppy foot. But we're trying to work on circulating the front of that left thigh, stimulating the quad, the hip flexor, deeper abdominal current. Now, maximize the pull on the right leg. So give a few more moments here. Maybe you walk the hands up on the belt and you feel that selection of flexing. It's good to just be simple. I mean, if you're in a meditative practice, it's simplification and presence, which sort of is the most complicated feature, is complete presence. Okay, breathing. If the bolster is a little much for you, you can always do these poses without it, some of these coming up. Okay, now moving the leg pattern. So just move that sand off the left and then take the left foot up. Push the feet wide. Might as well have a little bit of movement frolicking between the two sides and find that wide stance. Kind of visualize if you were standing on your feet, how you would move your stance open, how you pull on the belt. Yeah, and this might give you some information about the pulling system of the shoulders. So I think the legs straight to come back in is wise. I haven't played with bending my knees to get the legs back together, but you can try different versions. And then as the right leg lowers and the left leg is up, we're going to take a sand to the right thigh. Okay, and feel where that is. Feels a little different on the second side for some reason. So one never knows. It might be the hamstring quality. So you want to pursue evenness on the second side. sensations can be scattered, right? They can feel scattered in the leg. It does feel like a new side. So when you're pulling on that belt, you be the decider here. If you'll move your arms and hands to reach towards the foot, I think you end up with sort of the same place with your elbows though. Like you have a sense, I try to get my hands to reach and reach. And then I feel like the straight thing will happen with the arms, but eventually they start to kind of get sucked into bending. So a little curiosity with the calf, try to flex, get those calves to stretch. They benefit a lot from that because they're stood on so often. So feel the circulation flush in your lower leg. And if you begin to bend a little bit with the left leg, that's fine. Now, as I slide my hands down on the belt, we're going to actually move that sand, but let's see, let's keep it, you want to keep it real easy, kind of handy to get to on the left side of you. Okay. So when I bend through the knee and I take my belt off and bring both knees to kind of pop up, take those leg bands so that the knees moving side to side, you can feel that the body has warmed up in the middle. Yeah, and maybe most of your sensation is that you arrived in the inversion, you're able to successfully complete this last several moments of it. So when the knees go side to side, what's kind of blocked off from movement is the rib cage right now. So we'll get all through there. So we're going to let the body shift the knees over to the left, and then try to move your right arm over to the left as well and roll. And reach your feet down and then come up and slide down so that you're sitting next to the bolster towards the foot of your mat. And you have a setup, I think, this is close to side sage setup. We can kind of get there easily. So we have a blanket stack at the back, or make one. And when you get this blanket stack, I've kind of gone, I don't think it'd be backwards, maybe it is. The blanket seems like it's not quite high enough for me as maybe I used to use. So I'm adding my top blanket to kind of make it fold one more time. It's easier on my neck. And that kind of equals, you know, it's a little bit higher than the bolster. Okay, well, it feels comfortable. I think rather than looking at it and judging it, I should be just comfortable with what's best for me. Okay, so take a ball on the inside of the right leg, take a block overhead. Okay, and if you find that that sand can be centered on your side beam, okay, you can turn the sandbag across. You never know what's going to be the best sand for you direction when you get until you get into it. So, you know, I like sometimes the capacity to kind of move my arm and give a nice full unexpected amount of reaching. So I'm not really deciding my limit, right? There's no limit. I'm not going to limit myself to touch the block and that's it. Maybe I want to stretch my arm open to the ceiling instead. And I have the option to come back to the block. And you can turn that block up. And then it gives a little bit of a slope for the arm. So let's come into side sage. If you're already arrived and you're settling in, feel the ribs move with the breath. A typical reminder in this pose. And then that felt sense of circulation, right? So circling through the rib cage, dialing around the ribs. As long as your head is comfortable in your blankets, you might be able to turn your ribs towards the ceiling. And that's improving in the lungs, right? So if I stay kind of flat on my side, might be more of a sleeping shape, you'll receive a less support for your breathing cycle. So you might try to turn your ribs a little towards the ceiling, counter spin, and maybe let your head really truly relax on the blankets. You don't skimp on the pose options, right? So the feeling of settling in your shape. And give it a few more moments. Okay, now we're going to shift our structure so that we come back through the center, turning down to that left side. Okay, we're going to take the sand away, and I think it might be reasonable to actually take a moment of a seated pose. So we'll be moving the sand away and the knees bending, of course, to a little to the left, and then come up. And then take a seat on your bolster, of course. And the knees are out in Badakanasana. Right? We've been in this position, maybe relatively recent on our back. But feel when the hands are touching close to the knees. And if you like blocks under the legs to support your sensation in your knees or your hips, you can always scoop up your blocks under the legs. And if it feels okay, but you're not so certain, you could slide your feet forward. Okay. So I want you to actually let the spine go into flexion. So you're leaning down, whether your feet are closer, your feet are farther. It's a different width into your ankle, right? If I'm closer, I find it a hardship on my knees to really try to crank my feet this way, even though they don't hurt right now. It could be a later event. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit forward with my feet. So they're kind of in this diamond, the legs are in a diamond shape. And as I tilt forward, my hands on the legs, leaning to kind of strum the circulation on the inner thighs. Now, if you find a little more density in one hip than the other, you've only done one sage pose. So it could be partially that. But when you lower down, can you reach your hands back to your bolster or to the hands together? You choose. And either stretch the arms back and up or hold the bolster and lean down. Either way is fine. But I want you to get that sensation in the legs. Now bring the hands to the floor in front and then feel where the arms are pressing to the legs. So they're like weights pushing down. So I want you to get a feel of that arm and it's at the leg and you're trying to push down. If that's a little much, you can always stay with your hands higher up. That's okay. But get a feel if you can touch the floor. This isn't like a beginner shape. Okay, but if it's possible. And the ankles could feel different in their response. So this is, I always find really interesting because our ankles flexibility is not so great sometimes if we wear our shoe a lot. So feel that opportunity to get a little flexibility in your ankles and your footing. Okay, and then we're going to come to boat pose, the challenging boat one. So slide down off your bolster, sitting on the ground in front. Bring your hands to scoop in, and so they're between the knees, okay? Kneesies, okay? knee sneeze. Okay, lift up your feet and then stretch your legs forwards. Okay, feel that the legs go forward and they lift, yep, and then your hands could hold the back of the legs or they could hold the back of the knees. But in some ways, when your hands grip the back of the leg, it's as if they're holding so that the knees don't push in together. They have a little separation. So get a feel of lifting the chest. Good. So you sense that you're kind of maybe looking side to side to get a feeling or a look at where you're going. But it's really simple. Boat pose without all the props is a simple pose. It's your legs are hiked and lifting up. So feel the strength you've got to use in your arms to continue this excursion in the circulation of the bones. And then bend the knees so you're propped still on your seat. And then bring your arms to slide to the very center of the back of the thigh. And as you lower your feet, if you can get a ball that's nearby, place it between the knees, squeeze into the ball, and lower back your elbows on the bolster, if that's possible. Yep, there you go. So push down to your elbows to lean back, but squeeze into the ball. There you go. And then release the grip, but keep the ball there. Squeeze and keep the ball, but release the pressure. Remember, the ball is responsive. And squeeze as if you're going to get your knees to touching. So much for that, huh? Haven't popped the ball yet. Back and one more time. So we've done at least 4 or 5 of those. Squeezing in. Now, feel when you squeeze the final time that the energy is so steady in the legs. Can you start to move your weight off your elbows? Squeeze. Bring your hands to the knees. Squeeze in. A little more of that opportunity. It starts to fade in its enthusiasm, I think. And then coming up to sitting. Take away the ball. Okay, turn to side stage on the other side. I think this is what programming. Okay, so ball in the inner left leg, leaning down, and then add some sand. So much for changing things up for fun. Okay, so our hip has got an extra weight. So when I lean down, oops, gotta get my blanket in the right spot for my neck. So is it best to have your blankets tucked in so that your neck feels supported versus kind of tipping over? I would find a balance so that your left side of your neck feels comfortable, right? So if this feels like it's vulnerable, you need more height under your head. If you feel like you're comfortable with that vulnerability, then stay with your weight of your head relaxing. And your left arm is reaching. Okay, let the waist reach through the side band. You might close your eyes and really sense that movement of your breath. So the ribs flow with the breath. I think that's their dependency, is the ritual of breath movement. Now feel where the arch is through that spine central channel. So it's like you feel obvious lower back arches. And then the bolster kind of enhances the potential for your ribs to at least feel supported and an opportunity for them to move a bit, right? So you can trust the bolster holds on to the rib cage so you can flow to the right or to the left, or balance the reach of the left arm back. okay? So when that arm behind, right, if you have your left arm back and you're touching maybe to a block, if you got to one of those, two or one of those, whatever that is. And then feel where the legs are experiencing this, where if it's actually okay. So if you weren't even noticing and then now you bring attention and one of them feels uncomfortable, see what you can do to address that. And I would really support your head weight, your brain, let it be comfortable. Okay, so now when we start to come out from this will be kind of interesting. We've got the left side as having a little bit of memory of movement, okay? So when you roll your body weight over to the right, and you're going to take the sand away, and we're gonna kind of promote the tone on this side. So as you roll into the right, you're gonna come up and push the bolster forward and take the blankets, pull them in. In fact, you probably have to kind of reset them for a second here. And then as you tuck them towards you, take a seat on top of those. So two of them would be ideal. And then, gotta be sure I have this programmed right. Here, we got the right leg bending and the left leg on an outing, okay? And you're gonna use your, after you get your hair tie connected, you're gonna use your ball under the right knee and your bolster in front. Does everyone still have a bolster somewhere near the front? Okay, so I don't think the sand's gonna work too well on the legs for this portion. We'll see how it flows. I wish it could, but I'm not sure that's gonna be ideal. So we just wanna make sure nothing gets bad circulation. So when I lift up the bolster on its short end and tilts up, we lean forward. And I like this process of movement with my hands on the short end. My knee is getting a little too hyperextended on this left side. So I'll put a sandbag under it because that will prevent any of that extra bend or extra push down. So when you go forward and back, I want you to start to cruise into this movement of the spine and the arms. So head dives between the arms, round your back, and bring the spine up. Well, meaning from tail to crown, and then lean back forward. Let your footing be relaxed. So you don't have to force a flex foot or a lotus foot. You just kind of let your legs be a base. Okay, so let this flow for a few more moments. And if you get a little bit kind of boxed up, you don't really get much roundness or movement through your spine. You just sort of tilt forward and back, that's okay. But we are trying to loosen up the strands so there's nice movement around the spine. So as you tilt one more time forward, you know, kind of look to your left leg and bend that leg so you can scoot the leg in towards a cross-legged pose. So the left foot crosses in front of the right knee. Okay. And then we're going to take our block. Let's see, if you got one behind you, get it. So you'll have it out of your way behind you, but you'll put it over next to your left foot. So left foot is crossed front to right. I got my block right next to my left foot. And then I take the bolster and tip it up and tilt it so it's propped up on the short end closest to you, up on the flat block. And then this is probably where we could get our sand added on. Okay, so sand goes to the top of the left thigh, right on top. I'm going to take my ball and move it to my left, under my left knee, and then the right leg can lower down. And we reach over it on top of that bolster and lean down. So feel if you can let your head lower as well. I want you to try to find that focus of the ribs stretching. I mean, we just were in this side stretch, right? When we were on side sage. So it's this similar zone. I mean, it's not the same exact spot, but we're kind of loosening up in the back, closer to the sides of the spine. The muscles there, the paraspinals. Good name for them, right? Paraspinals. Parachutes around the spines. Okay, so as I lean down, I try to trust my body weight into my arms. This one sometimes works better when the bolster is wide because your arms can kind of open. But we are going to we're going to be moving our arms open on another pose like that. So I want you to find some different layers here. So lean down, let your head lower. Breathing, movement in the ribs. Now we're going to come back to pigeon and we'll move our arms to take the bolster across. And then we'll take that sand off and move the right leg forward in pigeon. And I'm going to keep my blankets for my pigeon on this pose. So my left leg goes back and your blanket stack, you might have to kind of push it around until it feels, it's kind of a different sort of lower pad than the bolster, isn't it? It's kind of like it mushes more, so it feels flat. It's not quite as the same support as a bolster. So when we lower down on our elbows, I want you to find where the elbows point open. And the top of that left thigh is kind of sloping down to the knee. And then get a feel here, if you can let your elbows be wide. They don't have to be on a bolster. You could be on the floor with your elbows if you want a deeper stretch. I don't necessarily think deeper stretch is going to get you more ease in these areas where they can be kind of tightened up. I like a little more support. So my left foot is certainly toes under for me because I can lift up my left knee and focus on that circulation through the leg. That's kind of the name of the game, is circulation, right? Keep the body in good circulation. Yeah, so the weight of the left knee might get heavy. Again, you might try to get some energy to pull it back up. Sometimes it works. Okay, so with the arch of the spine, take that left elbow down. So if I have a bolster, I prefer kind of to push a little bit forward and then put my left elbow down to poke the elbow so it points to the left side, of course. And then take a twist so the right arm goes around the back and you're rotating. Now, if this is too much, what do? Well, you don't do the pose if it doesn't work. You let your toes relax on the back foot. And you can stay centered and maybe bring your right hand around to your back and stay with your chest facing down. That's another option. Okay, but feel the weight through the legs. Maybe you're twisting, maybe your toes are under, maybe the toes, top of the foot is down. Okay, now come back with the hands pressing, elbows up, and then come back to a down dog or try to get there. So you're going to alternate bending your knees to a dog pose. That seems to be how the dog pose is moved into. But step your feet wide enough And just be kind to even the judgment of my knees too close, are they too far apart? Oh, this looks kind of funny. But just feel about circulation right now. Play the circulation curiosity game. So head is down, head maybe rock side to side. That's probably all that you're going to get to nod is your head here. And then when you lift up your heels and you lower down onto your blanket stack, okay, you're going to bring your, actually, I don't like this with 2 blankets. It's too many. So get it to a good height for you. And then stretch forward into up dog. Let the hips move down, let the waist kind of tighten up that way. So you get a little bit more of that waist connection right into the spine. And then come back to table. Good. And then reach your hips back. I'm going to keep my hips up enough so it's not child's pose, but they rock back for momentum. And then they go forward to lengthen this core body. Inhale. And exhale, reach back. Tail reaches back. Okay, inhale forward, so you're working on just the arch and the arch through the shoulders. Now, next time, toes under, down dog. So maybe you kind of work with the pulse of getting there, and then the lift of the knees, and the stretch back through the feet. So I try to get my heels down. And this is a pretty spread out dog pose for my arms to my feet. So I'm going to work on, the challenge instead of shortening it up, instead of becoming a short dog. I'm just going to keep working on it and see what happens with my muscles. And they might respond, and they might want me to walk closer in with my feet. That's just kind of going to be your natural, isn't it? That you're going to try, and then you might go back to what you can feel competent doing. But this is that one opportunity to strengthen your upper body in balancing your proprioception, right, getting upside down. So once you are here and you're stretching through your back line, walk your hands to your feet or your feet towards your hands, that kind of balancing both those movements. And then walk the toes up on the blanket, so you've got a calf stretch. And then as you lower down your ribs to your legs in a version of child's pose, standing child is nice because it's not gonna push into your knees at all, right? No knee compression. So head is way down. Hands maybe hold the elbows. Just traction your neck, your spine. Breathe slow. Let your exhalations empty completely. Let your head maybe nod side to side. Now stay with this for a few more moments. If you need to release the grip of the hands and change the crossing of the arms, find some balance from one to the other side with that crossing. Exhale. Feels pretty good in the face. That rush through the skin cells. Now hands lower, and they may not touch down like completely. They may be a little bit on the blanket, maybe on a block. But when you do kind of fuss around to get your feet off the blanket, and then you widen the stance of your feet, Bend through the knees and then walk the hands on forwards, come down on the knees. And then I think we're going to add this blanket addition. I don't know if you even took it away last time, but bring your blanket back up and then come into pigeon on that right leg, right knee forwards, open. And the back knee is the reason why I'm working with the toes under on the back foot too. I just realized is that when we've done pigeon with the bolster, that knee is a little higher because it's just, it covers more surface ground of your thigh. The blanket's just not as much. So it's a nice consistency through the front of the thigh to keep that kind of lengthening out. So try this version of pigeon where you're in a little bit of kind of it's an upward pigeon, like kind of an up dog. It's not a sleeping pigeon. So the top of your thigh is kind of perked up and the right knee is pointed out. Okay, and you might start to gather in your bolster and place that under, and then you kind of continue that balance. So for me, the position between my shoulder blades feels a little bit cramped up. So this is where you might let your head tilt down. Okay, and then I offered the idea of the twist last time. So, you know, you might work a little bit with that. Did we do right pigeon last time? I think we did. I'm starting to think that we did. No, we didn't, Floyd, we're okay. But see, we're gonna do this pose, right? Where we do the reach over. Whoever's watching this video is probably like, this group. So it's left leg pigeon. Okay, left leg. Sorry, Susan and Floyd. Okay, well, let's get it right. At least I figured it out. That's okay. It felt right, but then I was like, this doesn't feel right. Something's wrong. At least we caught it in the first couple minutes. Okay, so take that second side. Feel that knee open on the left leg. All right. As long as we figure out what I figure out what I've done, then at least I'm not totally losing it halfway. Pretty busy in the brain. All right. So when the back leg is, you know, it's funny, on the other side, I feel like I need to hook my toes under and get my knee up more than this side. This side feels pretty good either way. So you're going to take a twist, left hand to the back. That's when I figured it out last time. I was like, oh, this similar. So feel when you turn through the circulation kind of soaks the kidneys. So this is a good circulation in that area. Whether you have to take anything for the kidneys or not, this is a good inducer there. Keep them toned through yoga poses. So when the body turns, remember you can let your head be down and still keep that left arm back. You can twist with that right elbow pushing down the bolster. I think the bolster is easier for me than the floor because it's suspended up. But it's up to you. Now, if your neck is getting some little light grating of pull, you know, get a feel if you tuck your chin in a little bit. Feel ways that you can support your neck muscles. Balance the weight into that left sitting bone, turn back forward and down. And now we'll let our weight push over to that left hip and we'll swing the right leg out. Okay. And put the bolster on up. If you need a ball under your left knee, this is a good time to add it. All righties. Okay. So as we lean forward, we have that cat-cow movement option, right? It's subtle enough that you're pushing the tilted bolster and leaning forward and letting your head lower between the arms. And then you're coming back, and if you feel as if it's not the most successful rounded shape, that's okay. Sometimes that movement is soothing, so soothing that you forget your side of your poses. So kind of inducing that state of tilting so there's weight on the sitting bones. And now look towards that right leg and then bend through the knee. So you're going to scoot the right foot now in front of the left shin. Okay, and I think when we're here, since this is a pretty nice circulation in the legs, when we come up, we're going to take a block and put it to that inside the right foot. Now it's not like it's on my foot, but it's just positioned to my right foot. And then the bolster goes on top. I think you can see that pretty well. So I've tilted my bolster up. I move my ball to my right leg and my sand to the left top thigh. And then we bolster dive. The bolster dive as tilting, and some of us will have the bolster to closer to the front. Some are going to be a little towards like 11 o'clock. If you go and you veer it towards 10, you're going to find that once you set up the base, that's kind of what creates the movement traction for your body. So if you set it at 11, you can't really go over to 10 very easily. So the left knee might need to move open. You might have to readjust things. But once you push down on the bolster to the left, feel the back muscles respond as your elbow weight lowers into the bolster. It's nice to notice all these reactions from a simple shape and where the weight of your head is releasing.
Nicole? Susan?
I can hear you.
Can you see Nicole?
I can't. I can only see you.
Hi. Something happened, huh?
Yep, something happened.
It was feeling so good, too.
It did it once before.
Huh. It's still recording.
Yeah, it is.
Huh. Stay unmuted. Maybe she'll come back.
Stay unmuted. Okay.
Yeah, we can talk. Whoops. How weird.
Yeah.
Pause, stop recording. Reactions. Nope, that that didn't help. I raised my hand.
I see that.
I'll call her. By my phone.
I have my phone in here.
I'm texting her, Susan and I lost you.
I guess we could start over. I mean, we could,
Catch up.
well, we could get out and come back if that's what she wants us to do. Might try that. I just don't,
I think it happened to her because if you go to participants, it just has you and me. It doesn't have us. I mean, it doesn't have Nicole.
oh, okay.
I'll call her. Yeah, we lost you. Susan, your connection dropped. Why don't, Susan and I can hear each other. We unmuted. Why don't we log out and then you bring us back in? Is that possible? Oh, okay. You got a text from Nicole, Susan.
Oh, okay. I've got to go get my phone.
She's going to go get her phone. I'm on the phone. I'm talking to. What do we do? Oh, invitation, restorative. So I'm going to end and then find that, okay? And click back in. Bye.
Okay. I can't, I didn't get a text from her.
She's going to invite you back in. So leave the meeting and click back in.
Okay.
That worked, Nicole.